Never be afraid. All right, so here we go. Section 5.2. Now that I am recording, what we're going to spend this section over the next 2 days doing is we are going to factor what's called trinomials. Prefix tri means 3. This is probably one of the most common types of expressions that you will encounter in order to factor in this class and in college algebra. Trinomials. There's lots of them. So before we factor, remember factoring is unmultiplying. Before I factor, I want to remind us of how do we multiply two binomials together. So if I have x plus 9 times x plus 5. So hopefully this causes some memory circuits to spark in your brain and this comes flooding back to you. I've got these two binomials. You don't have to know this acronym, but it's something teachers tend to give you because it helps you remember to multiply all 4 different pairs of terms together. Foiling. Firsts, outers, inners, lasts. So here we go. When I go to multiply these two things together, what 2 terms represent my firsts? Okay, the x and the x, those are my firsts. X times x gives me x squared. I'm going to put a little f right over the x squared. What 2 terms represent my outers? The x and the 5. Yes, x and 5 is 5x. I'm going to put a little O. That looks like a 6. Let's try again. O, better. What 2 terms represent my inners? True, 9 and the x. So that's 9x. I'm going to put a little I over the inners. And then finally, what 2 terms represent my lasts? The x. Yes, 9 and 5. Thank you. Good call. You corrected it just in time. The 9 and the 5 are my lasts. And 9 times 5 is 45. I'm going to put a little L over my lasts. The reason I'm doing this is this shows me where the different numbers come from. Because what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to start with the final answer we get here. And factoring just means I'm going up the ladder instead of down the ladder. So my firsts, nothing happens to my first. So we can be rest assured when we are factoring that this x squared represents my firsts. Nothing, there's no like term to my 45. So we can be sure that this last number, this 45, came from my lasts. And then my middle terms, my 5x and my 9x, my outers and inners, I can add up, they're like terms. 5 and 9 is 14x. And so this middle term comes from my outers plus my inners. And like I said, we are going to use that to go back up the ladder. I'm going to kind of undo this. I'm going to take my firsts, I'm going to take my lasts, and I'm going to figure out which factor of my lasts would add up to this inner number right here. So here's an example for me, and then we've got plenty of time. We're going to do about 10 or 12 examples because it's just basically have your calculator. If you're not super confident with your multiplication tables, have your calculator out so that you can be ready to do it. So here's my example. X squared plus 13x plus 30. There's nothing in common, so I don't have any common factor to factor out. I am ready to rumble. So since it's a trinomial, I'm going to put 2 sets of parentheses. My first is x squared, so that tells me what are my firsts going to be? X and x, there's no other option. X times x is x squared. This is my firsts. My lasts are 30. Now this is where it's handy if you're decent with your multiplication tables. What you need is 2 factors of 30 that are somehow going to add up to 13. But before I worry about what the factors are, I find it's useful to make sure we know what the signs are. So this is a plus 30. What are my options for signs? How do you get a positive number when you're multiplying? What are the choices? Okay, you either have a negative times a negative, or you have positive times a positive. Which one is appropriate for this problem? The negative times the negative or the positive times the positive? Okay, because of this right here, That tells me it's the positive times the positive. Okay, so now I'm looking for two numbers. They have the same sign. I'm going to add them up. I need the two factors of 30 to add up to 13. So what's a pair of factors of 30? 10 and 3. Okay, if you're a 6 and 5 person, what does 6 and 5 add up to? 11. That's not these two. That's not going to be here. 15 and 2 is another pair of factors. What's 15 and 2 add up to? 17. It's a different problem. Okay, like I said, on my test, everything will be factorable. Okay, so you will be able to find that pair of factors no matter what. Okay, so we're going to put, doesn't matter what order, I'm going to put the 10 here, I'm going to put the 3 here. Here's my quick check. 10 times 3 gives me 30. That's my last. What's 10 plus 3? 13. Boom, got it. Finished. Figure out your signs, figure out your factors. Here's your first problem. I've got 4 of them in a row for you here. So first problem, you've got y squared minus, plus 9y plus 14. I'm going to give you 35 seconds to factor that. All right, here goes. What are my firsts? What do they have to be? Y times y gives me y squared. Great. What are my signs? What do my signs have to be on this problem? Both positive. Here's why. I'm just talking you through it. 14 is positive. The only way to get a positive number with your last is either 2 positives or 2 negatives. And I want them to add up to a positive, so they have to both be positive. Then what are the 2 factors of 14 that are going to add up to 9? 7 and 2 or 2 and 7? The order absolutely does not matter. Here's another one. Try this. X squared plus 13x plus 36. All right, my firsts. What do my firsts have to be? What do my signs have to be? This says they have to be the same sign, either both positive, both negative. This tells me both positive. Great. What are the 2 factors of 36 that are going to add up to 13? 4 and 9. Okay, 4 times 9 is 36. There are other factors of 36. Again, do not be afraid to get your calculator out. Play around with the factors. I try to keep the numbers manageable and reasonable for you. On my math lab, there are some with slightly bigger numbers, but they should all be doable. Here's another one. Z squared minus 12z plus 20. I've changed one little thing about this problem. Give it a try. Here we go. Z squared. My firsts have to be Z and Z. This time I changed one little thing. What do the signs on this one have to be? This says they have to be the same, right? Either two negatives or two positives. That's how you get a positive value with your lasts. So this tells me they both have to be negative this time. And what are the two factors of 20 that are going to add up to 12? 2 and 10. 10 and 2 does not matter what order you put them in. One more like this, and then I've got one more example for me, and three or four more for you. So x squared minus 5x plus 6. X squared has to be x and x. What do my signs have to be on this problem? Okay. This tells me they have to be the same. My last tell me what the sign's structure is. Same. This tells me both negative. And what are the two factors of 6 that are going to add up to 5? 2 and 3 or 3 and 2? Doesn't matter what order. All right. Here's my last example for the day. X squared minus 8x minus 20. First time we've had a negative right there. So make note, all of our other problems have been a positive for the lasts, and that has told us our signs had to be the same, either both positive or both negative. Now, x squared has to be x and x. Now my signs. If my lasts are negative, what's the only way to get a negative number when you multiply? Positive, negative and positive. You got one of each. Okay, so we have to have one of each sign. No choice. Doesn't matter what order, but no choice. I'm going to put positive and negative. Now our thought process has to be a touch different. Now I'm not looking for the two factor, like here we had the two factors of 6 that added up to 5, two factors of 20 added up to 12 because they had the same sign. Now I have two numbers with different signs, and if you remember the process for adding numbers with different signs, you take the difference of their value. Because one's going in the positive direction on the number line, one's going in the negative direction. They're battling each other. So I need now the two factors of 20, not that add up to 8. I need the two factors of 20 that have a difference of 8. And what are the two factors of 20 that are 8 apart? 10 and 2. Okay. Now, here's my final question. 10 and 2 have a difference of 8. Which one gets to be positive? Which one gets to be negative? Positive 2, negative 10. Why did you say that the 2 had to be the positive one? What about this tells you that? What was that? Has to add up to negative 8. Okay, so negative 10 plus 2 adds up to negative 8. Okay, so here's one for you. X squared minus 2x minus 8. The x squared is x and x. What do the signs have to be on this one? This is a negative 8, so they have to be different signs. So positive and negative. Negative and positive does not matter what order. And then what are the two factors of 8 that are going to be 2 apart? What'd you say? Positive 2, negative 4. You're 100% right, and you made the 4 the negative 1. Why? The negative 1 wins. Right? My answer has to be negative 2. The negative 1 wins. 2 more problems. Here's your second to last problem. T squared plus t minus 30. T squared, it's T and T. What do my signs have to be on this one? It's a negative 30, positive, negative, or negative and positive. They have to be different. And then what are the two factors of 30 that are 1 apart? 6 and 5. And which one wins? Which one gets to be the positive, the 6 or the 5? Positive 6, negative 5. Last problem. And I'll pass back your tests. We've got x squared minus 5xy minus 24y squared. Now, I've added on this y squared. If you have no idea what to do with it, don't worry, don't fret. Just forget about it for a minute and factor this like the other ones, and then I'll tell you what to do with the y squared. It's a real simple thing. All right, here goes, just for time's sake. So if you didn't know what to do with the y squared, don't worry about it. Let's solve the riddle of the numbers. The x squared tells me my firsts have to be x and x. The negative in front of the last tells me my signs have to be different, plus and minus. Forget the y squared for a minute. What two factors of 24 are 5 apart? 3 and 8, so I'm going to do a positive 3, a negative 8, because the negative number wins. And then if you didn't know what to do with the y squared, here it is. This is all you do. Y squared is going to be a y here and a y there. Okay, so you got 3y and negative 8y. That's where that comes from. So when you go to do your homework for section 5.2 over the weekend, you can do all of 5.1. We covered the whole thing. 5.2, just do the problems that have a 1 in front of the first term. Okay? Anything, if there's a number in front of this first term, wait. We will talk about how to deal with that on Monday. Okay? So you can do about half the homework.